Back again with Apex Predator Outdoors. We're going to do a quick go over some news that's affecting here, the outdoor world, and affects hunters and anglers and everybody. Just some interesting stuff. Just kind of cover the headlines and just kind of see what we think about what's going on. So let's get started. So this is a little thing that shows a study in Wyoming that shows that there's a habitat disruption going on by energy development. This is talking about oil and gas drilling specifically. And basically what they found here is that for every 1 acre of new drilling sites that are used, there's about 5 acres that are also compromised with the habitat there. So in the vicinity around the drilling platforms where they're doing all the drilling, you're also seeing disruption within about 5 acres around that site. And I mean, that's to be expected. We do need the oil and the gas, depending on how you feel about oil and gas, that is. For right now, it is our main energy source. I am open to, exploring new methods as long as they also, are not less efficient and they're not wasteful or polluting methods of energy. So basically what they're saying here, again, areas in Wyoming where these companies are coming and they're drilling and they're making oil wells and things like that, you're seeing the animals go away. Obviously that's going to happen, right? Anytime the human activity comes there and in any area, sometimes even just, if we're going out and we're checking our cameras, we're checking our area, scouting and things like that, we can bump deer and we can push them off that land for a little while. Obviously, whenever you're doing something like drilling for oil, it's going to be a much more massive push against the animals. They're going to go away. But whenever those sites stay there for a long time, and a lot of these drilling sites, depending on which type of drilling site it is, I've seen this several times where basically what happens is for a short period of time, yes, the animals are going to leave. They're going to go away from there. There's a lot of human activity. There's drilling, especially whenever they're scouting for oil and they're blowing up dynamite into the ground or whatever. Sure, there's going to be, a lot of that animal push where it's going to push these mule deer, in this case, off of that land. But what you almost always end up seeing in time is that whenever those sites, the less people are there, the more the deer get used to that, and they'll actually start coming back to that property. They'll start coming back to those sites more often, and it's going to lead to them taking back those grazing grounds. Eventually, if there's just an oil pump, out there just pumping out of the ground, pumping constantly, the deer are going to get used to that. They're going to scout it out. They're going to sit on the sidelines and they're going to watch it. And once they decide it's not a threat, they're going to come back over there and they're going to reclaim their grazing lands. That being said, like I said, we want to try to not disturb these areas if possible. Again, you make up your own mind how you feel about that. But I've seen several places here, not too far from my house actually, where we have just large fields with these pumps and with these things there. The deer still come in there. I mean, there's tons and tons of deer in that area. Most of them are a little bit smaller, but there's still a lot of deer activity there and other animals too. I've gone late in the evening and I've seen coyotes crossing the field and things like that. So, or at least they look like coyotes. It's quite a distance away. Anyways. And if you go and you do the research, and if this study were to continue quite a bit longer, you'd find the exact same thing, that eventually they're going to come back and it's going to be like it never happened, or at least to some extent. Whenever they have trucks coming in there to do pickups and things like that, or they have trucks coming in there to maintain the oil, the pumps and whatnot, then you'll see a little bit more of like, okay, you just bump those deer back out for a little while, but it happens. Moving on. Alright, so our next story here. Minnesota woman is killed by a black bear near International Falls. Oh, man. So let's go take a look at this. So, Miss Catherine Sweat, 62, of Maple Plains, staying with her parents in a remote cabin, Red Pine Island in Rainy Lake, when she was killed. Ontario police said. Minnesota woman, Ontario Provincial Police said. Okay. Anyways, I guess maybe they found a body somewhere else. So anyways, let's see. Red Pine Island is about 10 miles northeast of International Falls, Minnesota. The island is owned by Sweat Mueller's family, who are the only occupants and accessible by boat a 20-minute to half-hour ride. Okay. So wow, this island is apparently way out there, and it's far enough that you know, it's one of these places where you know, people are not as common. You know, the bears, the wildlife, kind of own this thing. On average, a fatal attack by a black bear reportedly happens about once a year in all of North America, right? That's pretty average, you know. So you've got a large area. When you have a large area, rather, you know, these animals are going to be a lot more spread out, and it's not going to be quite as much of an issue. There's not going to be quite as much, you know, animal and human contact there. In this case here, this woman is living on an island, which I'm guessing is very wild, very out there in the wilderness, and you're going to see things like this that, you know, there's going to be more attacks there. So let's look this up. This is Red Pine Island. All right, so we're looking at Red Pine Island here. So you can see this is kind of way out there, right? This is where Red Pine Island is. All right, so there's Minnesota. So this is literally in international waters, just inside of the Canadian border. So here's the United States border, here's the Canadian border. You can see Red Pine Island is just inside there. So all right, so here's a good look at Red Pine Island. You can see the American and the Pine Narrows around here. So this island is out there, right? You can see about 99% of this island is covered in forest. So there's you know, whenever you go into areas like this, there's a lot higher chance of these things. I'm sure this woman knew that it was gonna, there was always that opportunity going out here, being out here at her parents' land. So yeah, it's a half hour away from anything really. So police constable Jim Davis said that the woman went outside Sunday evening. She heard her 2 dogs barking but never returned. Ooh. You go out in the late evening and you hear your dogs going out and freaking out about something. So you go to investigate and you end up finding a black bear or something like that. So personal recommendation, I'm a huge fan of the ability for a person to conceal carry, or if you're living that far in the wilderness, I wouldn't, if I saw my dogs barking at something, you know, I'd probably be carrying a pistol or a rifle or something on me just in case. You're in an island that is, again, look at this. This is almost all wooded, forested area, right? Thick wooded, forested area. So this must be one of their, this might be even their house here. Who knows? It's a pretty good sized location there. But anyways, yeah, again, this is a thick forested area that's very small. I'm sure that there are not very many human inhabitants of this, maybe just a couple even. I mean, it's not a huge island, but you can see how thickly forested this is. That is definitely a wild habitat there. So just something to think about whenever you're going out like that, whenever you're going out in the wild. Not a bad idea to carry some kind of sidearm out there. You'd always be prepared. You know, always be prepared, always be ready to be able to defend yourself. I live here in the suburbs, and I, you know, sometimes hear my dogs barking at things. A lot of times I know it's probably just another dog. It's not a big deal to me. But if my dogs were freaking out over something like that in the middle of the night, or even late in the evening, right whenever I'm trying to go to bed or something like that, even here in the suburbs, I might take my pistol with me. I mean, I'm not paranoid. I'm just going to take it with me. You never know what's going to happen. There have been stranger stories, you know, people just kind of going on minding their own business, and then they end up in a confrontation with somebody trying to break into their house. In this instance, she ended up with a bear, probably trying to get at her dogs. So it really sucks. I hope her family's doing okay about that. You know, it's terrible tragedy. I hope her dogs are okay too, though. So apparently they did kill the bear. It says it's being sent for testing at the University of Gulf, I don't know. And a necropsy will be performed to help determine, and a necropsy will be performed to help determine whether there are physical reasons for the bear's abnormal behavior. So I don't really know if it's abnormal behavior. I'm guessing there's more to the story. But if a bear attacks you outside in the wild, I mean, I don't think it's abnormal behavior. Usually they do try to stay away from humans, but it might have gotten in there and tried to get something to snack on, try to, you know, take something. The bear was probably out just doing bear stuff, whatever that looks like. Yeah, then got spooked by the dogs. The lady showed up there whenever, you know, she heard dogs barking, and then the bear probably attacked because it was freaking out about the dogs. So, you know. All right, next story here. Let's see. A hunting guide who uses an electronic bird caller pleads guilty. Central Illinois owner of an outfitter service pleaded guilty to federal charges that guided deploying an electronic bird caller to lure geese within shooting range. Wow. So some states have laws. I know, like in Oregon, you can't use mechanical broadheads when you're hunting. You have to use fixed blade broadheads. That's fine. Apparently, you can't use electronic goose calls or geese calls in this area here. So always know before you go hunting your local regulations and stuff. Yeah, the problem with this story is that, I mean, come on, man. If you're a guide in that area, you should know better. So, you know, there's always these regulations we have to work with. This is in Illinois. Again, I don't know all the rules, but anytime I go hunting anywhere where I'm not native to, that's one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to research what the laws are in that area, because, you know, I mean, the last thing you want to do is end up in jail for something stupid like that. So, all right, next we're going to do some stories from the Lone Star Outdoor News. Let's take a check over here. So, hunter takes the elusive ghost at Elephant Mountain WMA Wildlife Management Area. So Jim Stout really wanted to complete his sheep slam with the desert bighorn in Texas. Man, that is a big sheep there, bighorn sheep. So Stout purchased the desert bighorn sheep hunt at Elephant Mountain. Let's see, during the auction of the Texas Bighorn Society roundup this past June. Project leader Trans-Pecos Wildlife Management Area, Mark Garrett, said that several of his staff had seen a really nice mature ram on a few occasions in the last year. The ram would be seeming to vanish after spotted for a few months at a time. So that's why they called him ghosts. This thing would pop up, big guy, everybody wanted him obviously, and then they would go away. Just by looking at this dude's head, man, this sheep looks old. So you notice how his tines there, you know, are kind of you see how his tines are kind of broken off here at the tip. He's been rubbing them, he's been breaking them on, or busting into stuff here. Look at his nose, his face. He's got these kind of marks right here that show that he's been really kind of getting into it. Nice. Look at the coat here. This guy was really old, and I don't know that the ears normally look like this, you know, but almost kind of look like cauliflower ears you'd see on like a boxer, like, or something like that. Got really large outset eyes. So very, very cool kill, man. Very congratulations to that hunter. So Stout arrived on Saturday. Once he issued the permit, unpacked, a group set out in search of him. He was located in an open area at the north end of the mountain, making a stalk on him making a stalk in on him that much more difficult. Oh yeah, anytime you're hunting these mountain sheep, man, it's even in Texas, which our mountains are nothing like, you know, some of the other mountains in other areas in the United States, but it is these desert mountains. It's a hike, man. It's brutal. So after a short wait, he dropped on the edge, allowing the hunting party to move without being seen. Once in possession, they only had one shot, approximately 350 yards. When the time came, Stout did not disappoint. Ghost was down. 12-year-old ram. I told you, man, this guy was old, man. This is a mature ram. Like I say, look at all this fur missing from him. I mean, he'd been around a while. Those are the ones we want to go for, man. In hunting, like I say, if you don't know, there's a reason usually that we take the older animals off there. Those are usually the animals that you want to go for trophy hunting. You know, if you don't like trophy hunting, that's fine, but there's a good reason why we go for these older animals. You know, there's a lot of different aspects of it that are important. So first of all, one thing is that whenever you're going for those older animals, you're actually cleaning up the genetics of the herd. So if you have a large herd of animals, you know, they're going to kind of breed, and they're going to rebreed every year. And it's always nice to inject fresh genetics with the younger ones in there. If you have this older guy in there for a while, then he's going to keep coming in there and injecting his genetics. Whoa, injecting his genetics. Let me try that again. So he's going to keep placing his genetics gently into the population. But basically what happens is you want to eventually get those out of there. Let them, they've had their time breeding. Let some new, younger guys come in there and be able to, keep everything good. Eventually, too, like I say, as they get older like this, they're not as good at protecting the herd if that's the thing they do, depending on what animal unit you're talking about, whether it's lions or bears or, anyways. In the case of some of these animals, too, they can actually be a detriment to the young. So, when they get old like that. For instance, I have an uncle who's gone to Africa and he's hunted lions and things like that. These lions, and it's similar with bears too, and these, real apex predator kind of animals, where whenever they get to a certain age, they'll actually go out and they'll kill the young because they know that it's a competition to their future success in repopulating and in mating with the females of the herd. So what they'll do is they'll go out and they'll actually murder the young in order to kind of protect their own place in the herd. So I don't think that's the way with bighorn sheep, but just the same kind of thing. This guy has been on a journey. Look at this sheep, man. He is nice, good size there. 12 years old, 178 and 7/8 green. So that's a score. So yeah, this is a great guy to take out. You see this old hunter here, Mr. Stout. He's been at this a while, I'm sure. Got in there, got his rifle, nice shot, 350 yards, and he was able to end the hunt, end this guy's life, with dignity. Like animals, just like people, we have our wars, we have our battles. You can tell this sheep's been through quite a few of them himself. And so, like I say, Mr. Stout here came and capitalized. He stalked up on this sheep, got within 350 yards, and he made a nice clean shot. So bravo, good job. So guys, thanks for tuning in. This has just been a quick episode of Predator and Prey, a little segment I'm going to do just all about the different news that's going on in here. We're going to see a lot of things in the future from this. We're going to be doing talks about hunting regulations, different hunting laws in different states. We're going to be talking about people poaching and things like that, and the impact that has on our network and our society and our way of life as hunters and outdoors people. We'll update you again on the news soon, and for the meantime, keep defying the odds, guys, and have a nice day.